This is the leadership lens where we say the hard truths and fix the system. Today, we're looking at why progress is so fragile and how to bridge the gap between your vision and the classroom floor. If you've been leading for any amount of time, you already know this tension. Mid-year data usually tells a specific story. You see gains on paper, you feel a sense of momentum, but if you've been in this seat long enough, that feeling comes with a side of anxiety. You feel yourself wondering, can we actually keep this up? Or is it just a sugar high that's going to evaporate by next semester? That question right there, that's the signal. Implementation science shows us a sobering reality. Nearly 80% of new instructional gains hit a wall and begin to fail within the first 18 months. I call this the 18-month cliff. It's the moment when initial energy runs out and the lack of underlying infrastructure is finally exposed. Progress is always fragile when it isn't designed to hold its own weight. So if that's the reality, we need to understand what's actually causing it. That cliff happens because we often rely on human energy, which is finite, instead of systemic infrastructure, which is renewable. And that distinction is everything. If your school's success depends on your physical presence in the hallway or your personal drive, you haven't built a foundation. You've built a tether. And eventually those tethers snap under pressure. Most leaders don't realize that's what they've built until it starts breaking. Having too many initiatives, having too many priorities creates an initiative overload. It scatters the focus of the building until nothing is done well. And once focus is scattered, execution follows the scattering. When we are not doing what we said we would do the way we said we'd do it, we are experiencing what is known in the research as the implementation gap, and that gap doesn't stay small. This is a failure in implementation fidelity, and it leads directly to initiative fatigue, the state of exhaustion where the staff is busy but the students aren't growing. That's the danger zone. To bridge this gap, we must install 3 specific anchors: information, people, and resources. Everything we do from here connects back to those 3 as systemic anchors. For a system to hold, these 3 pillars must be secured, not loosely in place, secured. Let's break them down. First, you need predictive monitoring for your information, not just data collection, prediction. A system that holds uses leading indicators. We track audit implementation fidelity, meaning, are we actually doing the work as often as we track student scores? Because adult behavior drives student outcomes. Second is human capital, your people. This is where most systems quietly break. A system that stays firm doesn't just hire for personality, it hires for alignment. Alignment to the work, not just the culture. You need a written instructional playbook that captures your building's secret sauce. This removes the idea of excellence depending on one hero teacher because hero-based systems don't scale. And third, your fiscal ROI, your resources. This is about discipline. Every major expense must be tied to measurable student growth. If a program has high costs but zero impact, the system should tell you it's time for a strategic cut. And most systems don't do that clearly enough. So let's think. Think of the classroom as an instructional triangle. At the top is the teacher. At one base is the student. At the other base is the content, the actual standards. Everything centers here. Learning only happens in the interaction between those 3 points. No interaction, no learning. As a leader, your job is to ensure the environment allows that triangle to work. And that's where leadership becomes systemic, not personal. You are the atmospheric pressure responsible for the systemic conditions, the information, the people, and the resources that allow high-level instruction to survive the stress of the school year. That pressure determines whether the system holds or collapses. So now we have the anchors, but how do we check alignment? You might be wondering how you actually know if these three anchors are talking to each other. That's the real question. Usually the first instinct is to force alignment by centralizing everything into one spreadsheet. But a spreadsheet isn't a strategy, it's just a container. A surgeon doesn't use a magnifying glass to look at a bone, and an architect doesn't use a plumbing blueprint to check the roof. Different tools, different purposes. They use the specific tool designed for the specific depth of the problem, and leadership is no different. In the same way, you cannot use a district-wide satellite view to fix a daily classroom task. That mismatch creates confusion. This is functional tiering and it's non-negotiable. To see your school clearly, you need the teacher's microscope to track weekly student progress, the principal's x-ray to see building-wide data, and the district satellite to track long-term trends. Each one answers a different question. If these three views don't align, you're just looking at a different version of the truth, and that's where breakdown happens. We need strategic triangulation to see if the work on the desk actually matches the work in the boardroom. That alignment is what stabilizes the system. So, let's bring this into action. The shift starts with your information anchor. That's where we begin. If this is something you are experiencing right now or anticipate coming up for you, we have a micro move, which are small, intentional shifts designed to help you reclaim your leadership so you can build a system that holds. Ready for a micro move? Here's the micro move. Perform a correlation check this week. Simple, but powerful. Pick one high-stakes subject and identify 5 students who are in the green on their weekly classroom tracker. Now, look at the most recent district benchmark for those same 5 students. If those students are in the red on the benchmark, your systems aren't talking, they're contradicting each other. And that contradiction tells you everything. If the tool doesn't predict the outcome, the system is leaking. That's your diagnostic moment. This isn't just a data error. It's a diagnostic of your other anchors. It's bigger than the numbers. A lack of correlation means your people are likely working from a playbook that lacks rigor, or resources are being spent on tools that don't match the demand of the standard. And now you know where to look. We aren't just working harder on the tracker. We're using this evidence to calibrate the foundation so the work can move with more predictability. That's how systems improve intentionally. Let's close this out. Leader to leader. Building a system that holds isn't about being perfect. It's about being disciplined. That's the shift. It's about making sure that when the newness wears off, the results stay. That's sustainability. I'm not going to leave you out here to figure it out for yourself. To help you get started, I put together the Systemic Fragility Audit. It's a tool to help you identify your structural gaps and install the anchors you need to survive the cliff. You can find that at the link below. Use it as your starting point. It's micro move time. This is the Leadership Lens. I'm Longino. Let's learn and grow together.